I was standing in the back of the church during my own funeral when I heard my daughter-in-law whisper to my son, "Finally, we can sell this place and take the money." They thought I was dead. I walked up behind them, tapped her shoulder, and said something that made her scream. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching, get comfortable and relax, let's begin. I watched my own funeral from the back of the church. The scent of lilies was heavy in the air. It was a smell I once liked. The coffin at the front was closed. I stood in the shadows of the vestibule, my black dress blending with the dimness. My heart was a dull, steady ache. It was not the ache of death, but of betrayal. The pews were full. People from the neighborhood, faces I had known for decades, were dabbing their eyes. My son, Marcus, sat in the front row. His shoulders were slumped. Next to him was Chloe. She wore a sleek black dress that looked expensive. She held a handkerchief to her face. From this distance, I could not see if it was wet. The pastor's voice was a low rumble of comfort. I did not hear the words. My eyes were fixed on the back of Chloe's head. She leaned toward Marcus. Her lips moved close to his ear. The gesture was intimate. It looked like a wife offering solace. I saw Marcus stiffen. He did not turn to look at her. He gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. It was a surrender. Then I saw her smile. It was a small, quick thing. It vanished behind the handkerchief, but I saw it. It was a smile of relief, of victory. The final prayer began. The collective murmur of Amen washed through the church. As the sound faded, people began to shift, to gather their things. The service was over. The crowd started to move toward the aisle, offering muted condolences to my son. I remained still, a statue in the shadows. Chloe and Marcus stood, turning to receive people. She linked her arm through his, her posture perfect. An older woman, Mrs. Jenkins, from 2 streets over, embraced Marcus. She said something I could not hear. Chloe patted Mrs. Jenkins's arm. Then she leaned in again, her mouth at Marcus's ear. The noise of the crowd was a low buzz, but the church acoustics carried sound in strange ways. Her whisper, clear and sharp, reached me. "Finally," she said. The word was a sigh. "We can sell this place. That realtor said it's a prime teardown. Can you imagine the lot value?" A coldness spread through my chest. It was a physical sensation, like ice water filling my veins. My fingers curled into my palms, my nails pressed into my skin. Marcus did not speak. He stared at the floor. "Don't look like that," Chloe murmured, her voice still low but carrying. "It's just a house. It's full of old junk. We'll get a clean start. A modern place in the new development. This is what we talked about." He nodded again, that same defeated nod. "I know," he said, his voice thick. "It's just hard." "It's just stuff, Marcus. She's gone. The sentiment is in here." She tapped her chest lightly, "not in cracked floorboards and dusty books." I felt my breath stop in my throat. Dusty books, asterisk. My books. The ones I read to him in, the ones that filled the shelves of the room where he did his homework. Cracked floorboards. The ones in the hallway, worn smooth by generations of feet, by his own childhood races to the kitchen. The pain in my chest sharpened. It was no longer cold. It was a hot, precise point. It was the pain of hearing your life, your memory, reduced to obstacles in a financial transaction. They began to walk down the aisle, leading the procession out to the cars for the graveside service. Chloe's face was a mask of appropriate grief. As they passed my hiding place, she glanced toward the donation table. Her eyes were dry. They were calculating. The crowd flowed out the big oak doors into the afternoon sun. I waited until the church was nearly empty. The funeral director was speaking softly to an usher near the front. I stepped out of the shadows. My legs moved without my conscious command. I walked down the center aisle. My heels made no sound on the worn carpet. I passed the empty pews. I passed the massive bouquets. I did not look at the coffin. I exited through the side door into the small garden. The funeral party was assembling on the sidewalk. Cars lined the street. I saw Marcus holding the door of the black limousine for Chloe. She slid inside gracefully. I moved along the edge of the building, shielded by a large hydrangea bush. The air was warm. Birds were singing. The normality of it was a cruelty. The driver started the engine. The line of cars began to pull away, heading for the cemetery where an empty hole waited. I stood there, watching the tail lights disappear. I had planned to observe only, to understand the depth of it, but that whisper had changed the plan. It had made everything immediate. It had made it personal. A decision formed in my mind. It was not a heated decision. It was calm and clear. If my home was already being measured for its demolition value, then I was already a ghost. A ghost could go anywhere. A ghost could listen. I would not wait. I would not hide at B's house and plan from a distance. The first move had been made against me. I would make the second. I walked to the street. My own car, an old sedan, was parked 3 blocks away. I got in. I did not drive home. I drove to the cemetery. I arrived after the procession. I parked on a service road overlooking the plot where my family was buried. From the car, I watched the brief ceremony. I saw the fake coffin lowered into the ground. I saw Marcus throw a handful of dirt. Chloe stood slightly apart, checking her phone when she thought no one was looking. When it was over, people lingered, talking in hushed groups. Chloe moved toward their car, clearly ready to leave. Marcus was caught by Aunt B, who held his hands, speaking to him intently. I could see the strain on his face. Chloe waited by the limousine door, her impatience visible in the tap of her foot. Finally, Marcus extracted himself and joined her. They got in. The car drove away, back toward my house, their asterisk house now in their minds. I started my engine. I followed at a distance. I knew they would go straight there. There would be a gathering. There would be food brought by neighbors. There would be performances of grief and support. Chloe would endure it, thinking of the realtor's comps. Marcus would drown in it, feeling like a traitor with every casserole he accepted. I parked around the corner. I sat for a long time. The sun began to dip lower. Cars arrived at the house. I could see the glow of lights in the windows. I could imagine the crowded living room, the table laden with food, the murmur of voices. The physical pain in my chest had settled into a constant presence. It was a companion now. It was the pain of a truth acknowledged. My son had agreed to erase me, not my memory, perhaps, but my physical presence. My home, my things, the tangible proof of my life. When the street was quiet again, when most of the cars had left, I got out. I did not use the front door. I walked down the familiar alley, through the back gate that squeaked on its hinges. The sound was so known to me it was like a voice. The back porch was dark. I took the spare key from under the 3rd flower pot on the left. My hand did not shake as I slid it into the lock. The door opened silently. I had oiled the hinges myself last spring. I stepped into my kitchen. The smell was different. There was a new air freshener, something chemical and sweet, covering the familiar scents of lemon polish and old wood. The room was clean, but a strange clean. It was impersonal. I could hear voices from the living room. Chloe's laugh, a light social sound. Marcus's lower murmur. Another voice, a man's I did not recognize. I moved through the dark dining room, past the table where we had shared countless meals. I stood at the archway to the living room, hidden by the heavy curtain. Chloe was on the sofa, a wine glass in her hand. A man in a suit, the realtor, I assumed, sat in my armchair. Marcus was by the fireplace, looking into the empty grate. "The comps are very strong," the man was saying. "The land is the real value. The structure, well, it has good bones, but for the modern buyer, it's a total gut job." "Exactly," Chloe said. "We don't want to deal with a gut job. A clean sale is best." "Marcus," the realtor asked, "you're on board with listing as is?" Marcus turned from the fireplace. He looked at Chloe. She gave him a small, encouraging smile. He looked back at the realtor. "Yes," he said. The word was flat. "As is." I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, my vision was clear. The hot point of pain in my chest had crystallized into something else. It was purpose. I did not retreat. I did not run. I stepped out from behind the curtain. The floorboard creaked under my foot. It was the one that always creaked, 3 feet from the archway. 3 heads turned. The realtor saw an older black woman in a black dress. her silver hair catching the lamplight. He looked confused, assuming I was a late-arriving mourner. Chloe's eyes widened. Her smile froze, then melted into a slack-jawed stare of pure, uncomprehending shock. Marcus made a sound. It was a choked gasp. His face went pale. His hand reached for the mantelpiece to steady himself. I looked directly at my daughter-in-law. I allowed no emotion onto my face. My voice, when I spoke, was calm. It was the voice I used in my library, quiet but carrying. "You mentioned selling the house," I said. "I think we should discuss it." The silence that followed my statement was absolute. It was a physical thing, thick and heavy in the room. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Chloe's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes were wide, the whites showing all around. She looked from me to Marcus, then back to me. Her wine glass tilted in her hand. A drop of red liquid slid down the side and fell onto the cream-colored sofa. The realtor, a man with a neatly trimmed beard, cleared his throat. He offered a strained, professional smile. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This is a private family meeting. The wake is concluding. Perhaps you could." Marcus found his voice. It was a broken whisper. "Mom." The word shattered the strange stillness. Chloe flinched as if struck. The realtor's smile vanished. He looked at me with new, horrified comprehension. "You're Mrs. Washington," he stammered. "I am," I said. I did not move from the archway. I kept my hands at my sides. "And you are in my home discussing the disposal of my property, before my body is even cold, it seems." "This is impossible," Chloe breathed. The color had drained from her face. We buried you." "You buried a box," I corrected, my tone flat. A fact you seemed quite eager to move past. Marcus took a step toward me. His hand was still on the mantel for support. "How? The hospital, they called me. They said you were gone." "There was a mistake," I said. It was the simple truth. The confusion at the county hospital with another elderly woman's paperwork had been a bureaucratic error, a shocking, life-altering error. I had woken in the morgue's cold room, a sheet over my face. The attendant's scream was something I would hear forever, but I did not tell them that. Let them wonder. By the time it was corrected, the arrangements were already in motion. I decided to see what those arrangements were. Chloe's shock was curdling into something else. Her eyes darted around the room, not landing on anything. I could see the calculations restarting behind her panic. This is insane. Marcus, say something." Marcus was staring at me. His eyes were filled with a turmoil of emotions, relief, shame, terror. "Mom, we thought." "I know what you thought," I said. I let my gaze sweep over the room, over the realtor's open briefcase on my coffee table, over the sleek tablet displaying property maps. "I heard what you thought, at the church, and I see what you're doing now." The realtor snapped his briefcase shut. He stood up abruptly. "Mr. and Mrs. Washington, I think I should go. This is clearly a family matter. We can, revisit the listing discussion another time." He practically sidestepped around me, giving me a wide berth as if I were contagious, and let himself out the front door. The click of the latch was loud. Now it was just the three of us. Chloe found her footing. She placed the wine glass on a coaster with exaggerated care. When she looked up, her expression had hardened. The fear was still there, but it was buried under a layer of defensive anger. "This is a cruel trick, or you've had a breakdown. You can't just appear like this. There are legal procedures, death certificates." "Which will be voided," I said. "My lawyer is already handling it. Mr. Perkins, you remember him, Marcus." Marcus nodded dumbly. He had known Howard Perkins since he was a boy. "So you're back," Chloe said. She crossed her arms. "Fine, wonderful, a miracle, but it doesn't change the fundamental issue. This house is too much for you. It's impractical. The stairs alone." "I have managed the stairs for 40 years," I said. "I will manage them a while longer." "It's not just the stairs. It's the upkeep, the property taxes, the memories that are holding everyone back." Her voice was rising, losing its polished edge. "Marcus works downtown. We want a life that doesn't involve maintaining a museum." I looked at my son. "Is that what you want, Marcus? A life without this museum?" He could not meet my eyes. Mom, it's complicated. Chloe thinks we think it might be for the best. You let her think for you, I said. There was no accusation in my tone. It was a statement of fact. He winced. I felt the hot point of pain in my chest pulse. I had seen enough. Their reactions were catalogued. Chloe's swift shift from terror to aggressive justification, Marcus's weak, shame-filled paralysis. The grief I had felt at the funeral was gone. In its place was a cold, clear space. I will be staying at Beatrice Johnson's tonight, I announced. I suggest you both take the evening to adjust to the new circumstances. You're not staying here, Marcus asked, finally looking at me. No, not tonight. I turned to leave the way I had come. Wait, Chloe's voice was sharp. What about the house? What are your intentions? I paused at the entrance to the dining room. I did not turn around. My intention is to live in it, I said, but we will discuss it, as I said. I walked through the dark kitchen, out the back door, and into the night. I did not look back. I got into my car and drove the familiar 7 blocks to Bee's bungalow. Her porch light was on. She opened the front door before I could knock. Her face, framed by its own cloud of gray hair, was grim. She had been watching from the window. Lord Evelyn, she said, pulling me inside. I heard the commotion from the cemetery died down. I was waiting. What in the world happened? I sat at her kitchen table, the same table where we had drunk coffee for 50 years. The familiarity of the chipped yellow laminate was an anchor. I told her everything. The whisper at the funeral, following them home, the realtor, my entrance, their faces. Bea listened without interruption. She placed a cup of strong, black tea in front of me. When I finished, she sat down heavily in the chair opposite. So she didn't even have the decency to wait a week, Bea said finally. Her voice was low and angry. She did not. And Marcus just sat there. He nodded. Bea sighed, a long, weary sound. That boy never did know how to stand up to a strong wind, especially one that sleeps beside him. We sat in silence for a moment. I warmed my hands on the teacup. The adrenaline was fatting, leaving a deep fatigue. What will you do? Bea asked. I looked at my friend. They think I am a problem to be solved, an obstacle to their new life. Chloe's mind is already rebounding, looking for a new angle. She will now see me as a living impediment. That is more dangerous than a dead memory. Bea nodded slowly. So you can't just move back in and pretend it's over. No, she will contest my competency. She will push Marcus to have me declared unfit. She will use my disappearance and the hospital error as evidence of instability. It will be ugly. It will tear him apart, and she might win. Then we need a plan that removes her power, Bea said. Her eyes, sharp behind her glasses, met mine. The power she has is greed, I said, and a guilty conscience. She believed me dead. For a few hours she owned my life. Now she knows she does not. That knowledge will eat at her. It will make her reckless. A plan began to form in the cold space within me. It was not a plan of confrontation, not directly. It was a plan of revelation. Chloe and Marcus had shown me who they were in a moment of perceived victory. I needed to see more. I needed them to see it too. They were scared tonight, I said. For a moment, they saw a ghost. Chloe recovered quickly, but the fear was real. Marcus, he is haunted already. Bea leaned forward. What are you thinking? I am thinking that a ghost can go where a mother cannot, I said. A ghost can listen. A ghost can remind. If they are so eager to be rid of my memory, let them be confronted by it. Let their own guilt and greed be the weapons. Bea's lips pursed. Then a slow, understanding smile touched them. It was not a warm smile. It was a tactical one. You're not going to stay here. No, I am going back, but they will not know I am there. I will let the idea fester that perhaps I am not entirely of this world, that the shock has unhinged them. I will let Chloe's greed run its course, and I will be there to witness every step of it. When the time is right, when the proof of her intentions is undeniable, then I will reveal myself. Not as a ghost, but as the legal owner of a house she tried to steal. It's risky, Bea said. Staying away is riskier, I replied. This is my home, I will fight for it, but I will fight smart. Bea reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Then I'm your accomplice. What do you need? I looked at our joined hands, the brown skin wrinkled but still strong. I need the key to the attic crawl space, the one from the outside under the eaves, and I need you to be my eyes and ears in the daylight. Listen at the diner. Watch the house. Tell me what they do when they think no one is left to see. Bea squeezed my hand. Consider it done. I finished my tea. The fatigue was still there, but it was now layered with a steady, focused energy. The pain in my chest was no longer a wound. It was a compass needle pointing me forward. The anger was not gone, but it was banked, a controlled fire for a long, cold night. I stood up. I'll go now before they decide to change the locks. Be careful, Evelyn. I am past careful, I said, picking up my purse. Now I am precise. The key was cold in my hand. Bea had retrieved it from her shed, a rusty old thing on a ring with a faded plastic tag. It unlocked the exterior access panel to the attic crawl space, a remnant from when the house had its roof repaired decades ago. The panel was around the back, hidden behind the thick branches of the old camellia bush. I parked my car in a neighbor's driveway 3 houses down with their permission. I carried a small bag with a bottle of water, a blanket, and a notebook. It was past midnight. The lights in my house were off. Chloe's sedan and Marcus's SUV were in the driveway. I moved through the shadows of neighboring yards, a skill remembered from childhood games. The camellia bush scratched at my coat as I pushed behind it. The access panel was a small, painted-over door set into the siding under the eave. I inserted the key. It turned with a gritty protest. I pulled the door open. It revealed a dark cavity smelling of insulation and old wood. I climbed inside, pulling the door closed behind me. The space was tight, about 4 feet high at its center, sloping down to the walls. It ran the length of the house above the back bedrooms. Dust, thick and granular, coated the floor joists. Fiberglass insulation lay between them like pink and gray batting. I spread my blanket over a section of joists near the center, where I remembered the living room would be below. A small, louvered vent was set into the floor there, meant for airflow. It allowed sound to travel up with surprising clarity. I sat in the darkness. I listened to the sounds of my house. The furnace kicked on with a rumble. A pipe ticked. I could hear the faint, muffled sound of the television from the master bedroom. It stayed on for about an hour, then went silent. I did not sleep. I sat with my back against a roof beam, the dust tickling my nose. I fought the urge to sneeze. The hours passed. The darkness in the crawl space was absolute, but a faint gray light eventually began to seep through the cracks around the access door. Dawn. Below, I heard movement. The groan of plumbing as someone used the shower. The beep of the coffee maker. Footsteps on the hardwood floors I had polished every Saturday. These were the rhythms of my life, now happening without me. I heard their voices, distant at first, then clearer as they moved into the kitchen, which was directly below the front part of my hiding place. I still can't believe it, Chloe said. Her voice was tense. It's like a bad dream. It's not a dream, Marcus replied. His voice was heavy. She's here, she's alive, we have to deal with that. Deal with it how? She's going to move back in and pretend nothing happened. We'll be stuck here forever, Marcus. You heard her. My intention is to live in it. Her imitation of my voice was sharp and mocking. It is asterisk her house. It's a asterisk house asterisk. Bricks and wood. It's an asset. And it's tying us to a past that is cumbersome. Look at all this. I heard a cabinet door open and close. Dishes nobody uses, cookbooks from the 70s, it's clutter, it's emotional clutter. There was a long silence. Then Marcus said, She just came back from the dead, Chloe. Maybe we should slow down. Slow down, her voice rose. This is exactly why we need to speed up. Her showing up like that, it's not normal. The hospital made a mistake. That's what she says. Maybe she had a psychotic break and wandered off. Maybe she's not competent to live alone. We need to think about next steps for her safety. My hand tightened around the water bottle. So it began. The shift in strategy, from erasing a dead woman to managing a living problem. Don't talk like that, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I'm being realistic. I already called David back, the realtor. You what? I called him this morning. I smoothed things over. Told him it was a family trauma, a misunderstanding. He's coming by at 10 for a proper walkthrough. We need a professional assessment of the true value, especially if we're going to be dealing with complications. Chloe, this is wrong. Is it? Or is it finally taking control of our future? She'll be happier in a nice, modern, assisted living facility. They have activities, people her own age. I closed my eyes. The coldness inside me spread. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I heard footsteps, the murmur of greetings. The realtor, David, was back. They moved from room to room. I shifted silently on my blanket, positioning myself near different vents to follow their progress. As you can see, the layout is very compartmentalized. David's voice floated up from the living room. Today's buyers want open concept. Knocking down this wall, and probably this one, would be phase 1. That's what I thought, Chloe said, and the kitchen is a total loss. From the dining room vent, these built-ins are nice craftsmanship, but most buyers see them as dated. They'd likely come out. The floors are in decent shape underneath, could be refinished. In my old bedroom, good square footage, master suite potential if you combine this and the adjacent bedroom. The closet space is inadequate by current standards. It was a dissection, a clinical dismantling of a life. Each comment was a scrape against my bones. Then they moved to the second bedroom, the one that had been Marcus's, then a guest room, now used as a storage of sorts. I heard the door open. David said. This is more what I was talking about. I know, Chloe sighed, a sound of profound irritation. This is what I mean by sentimental clutter. She refused to get rid of anything. I knew what was in that room. Boxes of Marcus's childhood artwork and report cards. My parents' photo albums. My late husband's military uniform in a sealed box. Christmas decorations. My collection of first editions on shelves. A thorough estate liquidator could clear this out in a day, David said. There might be a few items of value. The rest is donation or dumpster fodder. It would need to be done before listing to show the true potential. That's the plan, Chloe said. Her voice was close to the vent. I want it all gone, every last scrap. I don't want Marcus getting bogged down in memories. It's not healthy. Chloe, Marcus's voice was a weak protest from the doorway. Marcus, be honest. When was the last time you looked at your 5th grade diorama? It's dust. It's just taking up space that could be a home gym or an office. Some of those books might be valuable, David offered. Sell them, sell all of it. The money can go toward her care facility if that's what it comes to, or toward our new place. It's just stuff. The word, stuff again. It was her mantra, a tiny, dismissive word to encapsulate a family's history. I listened as they finished the tour and went back downstairs. I heard the front door close as David left. The silence that followed was charged. I don't like this, Marcus said. Talking about her things like that, talking about her care. Somebody has to be the adult here, Chloe snapped. She is not well, Marcus, showing up like that. Hiding in the house. That is not rational behavior. We have a responsibility. To her and to ourselves. We list the house. We get a power of attorney. We handle this cleanly and fairly. I need to talk to her. You will, and you will tell her it's for the best, because it is. I heard her walk away, her heels clicking on the hallway floor. A moment later, I heard the sound of a trash bag being pulled from its roll. Then, from directly below me, in the living room, I heard her muttering to herself. Junk, all of it, starting with these. I peered through the slats of the vent. I could see only slices of the room. I saw Chloe's hand reach for the row of framed photographs on the mantelpiece. Our wedding photo, Marcus's graduation, a picture of my parents on their 50th anniversary. She took them down, one by one, and dropped them into a black plastic bag. The sound of glass cracking was small and final. She left the bag by the front door and went upstairs. I remained still for a long time. The dust in the attic seemed to settle deeper into my clothes, my skin. The coldness within me had solidified into a hard, sharp object. It was no longer just pain. It was a tool. I looked at the notebook in my bag. I did not write anything. I did not need to. The words were etched into me now. Dumpster fodder, power of attorney, care facility. I reached into my pocket and felt the small, cold metal of my mother's thimble. I had taken it from my sewing box at Bee's. It was a tiny thing, worn smooth on one side. When I was sure the house was quiet again, I moved to the vent over the living room. I pushed the thimble through the slats. It fell, landing silently on the thick rug in front of the fireplace. It was a small thing, just a piece of old metal, not worth anything to a liquidator. But it was a start. I waited in the crawl space until the house was silent and dark again. I left just before dawn, returning to Bee's to wash the dust from my skin and change my clothes. We spoke little. She saw the resolve in my face and simply handed me a fresh thermos of coffee. "The thimble?" she asked. "Placed," I said. That afternoon, from my discreet parking spot, I saw the estate liquidator's van arrive. 2 men in matching shirts went inside. They were there for 2 hours. When they left, they carried no boxes. I knew what that meant. It was an assessment, an inventory, the pricing of my life. It was time to begin. I re-entered the attic that night. I had brought a few more items in my bag: a small, battery-operated radio, a handkerchief with a few drops of my gardenia perfume, and a photograph. My first action was simple. In the early morning before they woke, I crept from the crawl space into the main attic, a riskier move, but the access panel from the hallway was rarely used. I knew its creaks. I eased it open and slipped down into the second-floor hallway. The house was asleep. I went to the living room. The black bag with the framed photos was still by the door. I opened it. I took out the picture of my parents. The glass was cracked over their smiling faces. I removed the photograph from the ruined frame, folded it carefully, and put it in my pocket. I left the empty frame in the bag. Then I went to the kitchen. I took Marcus's favorite mug from the cupboard, the one that said "World's Best Son" that he'd given me as a child, that he now used for his coffee. I placed it in the center of the kitchen table. I positioned it so the handle faced his usual chair. I returned to the attic the way I came. I waited. The morning sounds began. I heard Marcus come downstairs first. I heard his footsteps pause in the kitchen. A long silence. "Chloe," he called, his voice uncertain. "What?" she answered from upstairs. "Did you get my mug out?" "No, why would I?" Another silence. Then the sound of the coffee maker starting. Normalcy, but strained. Later, when they were both in the kitchen, I performed the second action. I had threaded the small radio through the louvered vent in the living room ceiling, securing it with wire so it hung just out of sight. At 10 o'clock, the time I always listened to the local jazz station, I pressed play from my hiding place. The soft, smooth tones of a saxophone filled the living room. "What is that?" Chloe said sharply from the kitchen. "Sounds like the radio," Marcus said. "We don't have a radio in there. The TV's off." I let it play for one full song, then turned it off. I heard her walk into the living room. "Marcus, come here." He joined her. Maybe it was from outside. "It wasn't from outside. It was in here." Her voice was tight. It sounded like that station she always played. "Coincidence," Marcus said, but he didn't sound convinced. The third action was the scent. During their lunch, while they were arguing in low tones about meeting with a lawyer, I dangled the perfumed handkerchief near the heating vent in the dining room. The furnace was not on, but the house's natural air currents carried the faint, distinctive smell of gardenias into the space below. Chloe stopped talking mid-sentence. "Do you smell that?" "Smell what?" "Flowers, that her perfume." Marcus sniffed the air. I saw his shadow below pause. "I don't smell anything," he said, but his voice was quiet. "I do, it's right here." Her chair scraped back. "This is ridiculous. Are you doing this, trying to spook me?" "Why would I do that?" "To get me to back off, to make me think this house is haunted." "The house isn't haunted, Chloe," Marcus said, but he didn't sound like he believed his own words. The final action of that day was the photograph. In the evening, as they sat in the living room, Chloe on her laptop, Marcus staring at the blank television screen. I used a long, thin piece of wire to slide the folded photo of my parents from the vent. It fluttered down, landing on the rug at Chloe's feet. She jumped. What was that? She looked down, she picked it up, she unfolded it, her face lost its color. Marcus. He looked over, he saw the image, his breath caught. Where did this come from? She whispered, her eyes scanning the empty ceiling. It was in the bag, with the frames. It was asterisk in the frame. I put it in the bag myself. The frame is still in the bag by the door. This is just the photo. How did it get out? Her voice was rising toward panic. How did it get asterisk here? Marcus took the photograph from her trembling hand. He stared at his grandparents' faces. I don't know, he said, his own voice hollow. That night, the atmosphere in the house changed. I could feel it through the floorboards. The usual sounds were muted. Their conversations were whispers I could not decipher. The confident click of Chloe's heels was absent. I heard Marcus packing in the living room long after Chloe had gone upstairs. I listened as he finally climbed the stairs. The bedroom door closed. Then the argument started. It was muffled at first, then voices raised in sharp bursts that penetrated the floor. Completely irrational, Chloe's voice shrill. Is it? Things are moving, my mug, the radio, that smell. The asterisk picture, asterisk, Chloe. It's a coincidence. Or it's you. You're sabotaging this because you're too weak to do what needs to be done. Maybe what needs to be done is to stop. To talk to my mother like a human being instead of plotting to sell her life out from under her. Oh, so now it's asterisk her asterisk life. It's asterisk her asterisk house. A day ago you were agreeing with me. A day ago I was in shock. Now I'm seeing things, hearing things. My mother is alive and we're acting like vultures. Maybe she's right to hide from us. She is not asterisk hiding in the house, Marcus. That's insane. Is it? Where is she then? Why hasn't she come back? Maybe she's watching us, maybe she knows everything. There was a loud thump, like a hand hitting a dresser. Stop it! You are feeding into this hysteria. It's a house. It's old. It makes noises. We are under stress. That is all this is. Then why are you so scared? Marcus's question was quiet, but it cut through the wood and plaster. The silence that followed was profound. I imagined them staring at each other in the dim bedroom light. I'm not scared, Chloe said finally, but the bravado was thin, stretched over raw fear. I'm frustrated, and I'm tired. We are listing the house. We are seeing the lawyer about conservatorship options. End of discussion. I did not hear Marcus's reply. The argument was over, but the crack was there. In Chloe's confidence, in Marcus's obedience. I sat back on my blanket. The cold, sharp tool inside me felt useful. It had made its first impressions. The haunting was no longer just an idea. It was a reality they were arguing about. A ghost was only powerful if the living believed in it. And now they both did. One with terror, the other with guilt. It was a good start. I left the house before sunrise, the taste of dust still in my throat. I needed information from the world outside those walls. I needed to know what Chloe was doing in the daylight when she thought no one from my world was watching. Bea was waiting for me at her kitchen table. She pushed a plate of toast toward me. You look like you've been sleeping in a coal bin. Close enough, I said, sitting down. They're fraying, arguing, he's starting to question, she's getting reckless. Good, reckless people make mistakes. Bea sipped her coffee. I've been to the post office and the drugstore, made a few calls. The community grapevine is buzzing, Evelyn, but not about you being alive. I looked at her. What are they saying? They're saying that Chloe Washington is moving awfully fast. That she was at the bank yesterday, asking about early inheritance procedures and lines of credit. That she's been seen at the new condo sales office downtown. Twice. I absorbed this. It was as I expected, but hearing it confirmed made it more concrete. And the house. Word is she's pushing for a quick, quiet sale to a developer. As is, contents included. That's the phrase going around. The realtor, David, plays golf with Mr. Hendricks from down the street. He let it slip. She's trying to bypass an estate sale, I said. Sell it all in one block. Faster, less scrutiny. Exactly, and she's been calling estate liquidators, not just for an assessment, for a rush job, a company called Clean Sweep Estates. They have a reputation for being aggressive. A cold knot formed in my stomach. A rush job meant they would come in and take everything, valuing nothing. My mother's wedding china would be lumped in with old magazines. My father's tools would be sold for scrap weight. When? She's trying to schedule them for the day after tomorrow. I put down my toast. The appetite was gone. The plan needed to accelerate. My small hauntings were causing domestic tension, but they weren't stopping the machinery of greed. Chloe was pushing forward, using fear and urgency as fuel. We need to see it for ourselves, I said. We need to hear what the neighborhood is saying, not on the phone, in person. Bea raised an eyebrow. You can't be seen, not yet. I won't be. I went to the bag I'd brought from her house. Inside was a wide-brimmed hat, a pair of non-prescription glasses with plain lenses, and a lightweight scarf. You'll be seen. I'll just be an old friend visiting from out of town. No one looks too closely at a stranger having pie. An hour later, we walked into Millie's diner. The bell on the door jingled. The air was warm with the smell of grease, coffee, and baked goods. The familiar red vinyl booths were mostly full with the mid-morning crowd, retirees, a few mothers with young children, some workmen on a break. Heads turned as we entered. They saw Bea first and smiles broke out. Then their eyes flicked to me. I kept my head slightly down, adjusting my scarf as if against a draft. The glasses blurred my features. To them, I was just another elderly woman. Bea, over here, honey, a voice called. It was Loretta Green, who lived across from my house. She was sharing a booth with Maybelle Carter from the church auxiliary. Bea steered us toward them with a practiced smile. Loretta, Maybelle, this is my cousin, Rosalie, visiting from Richmond. Rosalie, these are my neighbors. I offered a soft, non-committal hello and slid into the booth beside Bea, facing the window. So sorry to hear about all the trouble, Bea, Loretta said immediately, leaning forward. Her voice was a conspiratorial whisper. We've been seeing the comings and goings. That daughter-in-law of Evelyn. What about her? Bea asked, her tone carefully neutral. Maybelle tusked. She's got a nerve. Not even a week, and she's got realtors and junk men traipsing in and out. I saw a man in a suit carrying a clipboard yesterday. Looked like an appraiser. And a van from some cleaning company this morning. Cleaning company? I asked, keeping my voice light with a hint of a southern drawl I didn't normally use. Looked like it. Clean sweep, it said on the side. 2 men went in, were inside for about 20 minutes, came out with a clipboard, not a box. Makes you wonder what they're planning to sweep away. Maybelle's eyes were sharp with disapproval. Loretta nodded. Marcus looks like a ghost himself. I tried to talk to him yesterday when he was getting the mail. Asked how he was holding up. He just muttered something and hurried inside. That woman was watching from the window. She didn't wave. The waitress, Kendra, arrived. We ordered coffee and 2 slices of peach pie. As she left, Loretta continued. Reverend Miller was by the house day before yesterday, for a pastoral visit. He told my Gerald that Chloe answered the door. Was very polite, but said Marcus was indisposed. The Reverend said he could hear raised voices upstairs. Said the whole house felt tense, not like a house in mourning, like a house under siege. The information was a steady, useful drip. It confirmed everything I'd heard from the attic and added new layers. The public face Chloe was maintaining was cracking under the watchful eyes of the community. They saw the activity, the haste, the absence of proper grief. Our pie arrived. As we ate, the conversation drifted but kept circling back. It's a shame, Maybelle said, stirring her coffee. Evelyn loved that house. Everything in it had a story. I just can't believe she's gone. Still feels like she'll come walking down the street with her library bag any minute. I kept my eyes on my plate. That Chloe never did fit in here, Loretta murmured, not unkindly but with finality. Too sharp, always in a hurry. Never had time for the garden club or the church bake sale. She sees history as something to clear away for a parking lot. B sighed, a perfect performance of shared concern. It's a difficult time. Grief makes people do strange things. Greed makes people do stranger ones, Maybelle countered. We finished our pie and paid the bill. As we stood to leave, Loretta touched B's arm. You let us know if there's anything we can do, B. For the family, we're all thinking of Marcus and of Evelyn's memory. I will, B said. Thank you. Outside in the bright sunlight, we walked slowly back toward B's house. The information settled between us, solid and heavy. They know, I said, my own voice returning. They may not know I'm alive, but they know what she is. They see it. The community is your witness, B said. They've already tried and convicted her in the court of opinion. That matters. It matters for later, for the story that gets told, but it doesn't stop the liquidators from coming the day after tomorrow. I stopped walking. We need to change the plan. The small hauntings aren't enough. We need something that stops the process, something personal, something that hits Chloe where she lives, in her sense of control and in her pocketbook. B looked at me. What are you thinking? She's already packing things up. She'll go for the valuables first, the things that are easily portable and have clear monetary worth. I thought of the jewelry box on my dresser, the heirloom pieces inside, my grandmother's sapphire ring, my wedding pearls. She'll try to move them, to secure them or to sell them privately. If she does that, she crosses a line even Marcus can't ignore. And if she does? Then the ghost, I said, the cold tool inside me turning to a specific, pointed edge, becomes a thief who steals back what's hers. The prediction was correct. She moved on the jewelry the very next day. From my attic vantage point, I heard her in my bedroom. The distinct sound of my vanity drawer opening, the rustle of the velvet-lined jewelry box being lifted, then the sharper clicks as she opened individual cases. What are you doing? Marcus's voice came from the doorway. He had stayed home from work again. The strain in the house was keeping him there. Getting these appraised, Chloe said, her tone brisk, practical. The liquidator said they might have some value. We should know what we're dealing with. Those are Mom's things. You can't just take them. I'm not taking them, Marcus. I'm having them evaluated. If they're worth anything, that's equity. For her care or for us, it's an asset. We need to inventory all assets. Her words were a rehearsed script. This isn't sentimental, it's financial. I heard the snap of a latch closing. I'm putting them in the safe for now, until we can get a proper appraiser out. The safe was a small, fireproof box they kept on the top shelf of their bedroom closet. I knew the combination. Marcus had written it down on a card in his desk years ago, worried he would forget. I had seen him do it. I listened as her footsteps crossed the hall to the master bedroom. I heard the closet door slide open, the scrape of the metal box on the shelf, the beeps of the digital lock being programmed. A new combination, of course. That afternoon, while they were both downstairs, I took a calculated risk. I slipped from the attic into the hallway and into their bedroom. The closet door was still slightly ajar. The safe was back on the shelf. I could not open it, but I did not need to open it yet. My objective was different. On Chloe's dresser was a small, decorative ceramic bowl where she tossed her everyday jewelry, her wedding ring when she washed dishes, a pair of earrings, her watch. I moved to the dresser. I picked up her watch, a slim, gold-banded thing she was fond of. I placed it in my pocket. I then took from my own pocket a single, plain pearl earring from a cheap pair I had brought with me. I dropped it into the center of her bowl. It was a trade, an invisible one. I returned to the attic. The reaction came that evening. Chloe was getting ready for a dinner she had insisted they attend, a networking event for Marcus's firm. My watch is gone, I heard her say, irritation in her voice. Did you leave it at the office? Marcus asked. No, I put it right here last night, in this bowl. Her voice grew closer. She was in the bedroom. And what is this? Her tone shifted to one of confusion and dawning alarm. What? This earring. This isn't mine, this is cheap. This is junk. Where did it come from? Silence. Marcus, I am asking you a question. Did you put this here? Why would I put a random earring in your bowl? To mess with me. Because you're trying to make me doubt my own mind. I'm not doing anything, Chloe. Maybe you picked it up somewhere without realizing. I know my own jewelry. Her voice was rising, fraying at the edges. First the pictures, the radio, the smell, now this. Things are asterisk moving. My things are being asterisk taken and replaced with trash. Maybe it's not meant to mess with you, Marcus said, his voice low and strained. Maybe it's a message. A message from who? Your dead mother. She's not dead. The argument spiraled from there, but the outcome was clear. Chloe, now personally violated and terrified, would want to secure her loot faster. She would not wait for an appraiser. Later that night, long after they had returned from their dinner, a tense, silent affair, I gathered, I heard their bedroom door close. I waited an hour. Then I heard the soft, digital beeps of the safe being opened. 4 beeps. I listened intently, mapping the sounds to numbers in my mind. It was a futile exercise, but my brain did it automatically. A high tone, 2 middle tones, a low tone. I heard the rustle of velvet. Then the safe closed again. A drawer on her nightstand opened and shut. She had moved the jewelry box from the safe to her nightstand, a place she could see it, control it. It was a reaction born of fear and possessiveness. It was also a mistake. I waited until the deep, regular rhythm of Marcus's snoring filled the air. I waited another hour for good measure. Then, using the access panel in the hallway ceiling, I lowered myself silently. I stood in the dark hallway, a shadow among shadows. Their bedroom door was not fully latched. I pushed it open an inch at a time, pausing at each tiny creak. The room was dark, lit only by the green glow of a digital clock. Marcus was on his back, one arm thrown over his eyes. Chloe was on her side, facing away from the nightstand, her body a tense curve even in sleep. I moved like smoke, 3 steps to her side of the bed. The jewelry box sat on the nightstand, next to a glass of water. It was my mother's old rosewood box, its surface worn smooth by time. I did not open it there. I picked it up. It was lighter than I expected. The velvet had weight, but the gold inside did not. I turned and left the room as silently as I had entered. I did not return to the attic. I went downstairs to the living room. In the faint light from the street lamp filtering through the curtains, I opened the box. There they were, my wedding band, my engagement diamond, modest but bright, my grandmother's sapphire ring, the stone a deep dark blue, my pearl necklace, a few other pieces. Chloe had been thorough. I took everything out. I placed each piece carefully on the coffee table. Then I emptied the box of its velvet lining. I carried the empty box back upstairs. I slipped into their room again. I placed the empty rosewood box back on Chloe's nightstand in the exact spot I had found it. I returned downstairs. I gathered the jewelry from the table. I did not take it to the attic. I had a different destination. I went to the kitchen. I took a clean dish towel from the drawer. I spread it on the counter. I laid the jewelry out on it, the rings, the necklace, the earrings. I folded the towel over them into a neat, flat bundle. I then went to the hall closet and retrieved a small, sturdy cardboard box that held a set of spare light bulbs. I emptied the light bulbs onto the closet shelf. I placed the towel-wrapped jewelry in the bottom of the box. I replaced the light bulbs on top of it. I closed the box and put it back on the closet shelf, behind a stack of old board games. My jewelry was now hidden in the last place anyone would look for it, in a box labeled light bulbs, in a hall closet, in a house supposedly being cleared of junk. But the performance was not over. I needed a finale. From my bag, which I had hidden behind the living room sofa earlier, I took one item, my grandmother's sapphire ring. I did not put it with the others. I held it in my palm, the metal still warm from my skin. I went back upstairs. I stood in the doorway of their bedroom. I took a deep, silent breath. Then, with an underhand toss, I sent the ring skittering across the hardwood floor. It spun with a faint, metallic whisper before coming to rest directly under Chloe's side of the bed. I retreated to the attic. The scream came at 7:30 the next morning. It was short, sharp, and full of genuine, undiluted terror. I was already positioned at the vent. I saw Chloe stumble out of bed, the empty rosewood box in her hand. "It's gone! It's all gone." Marcus sat up bleary-eyed. What's gone? The jewelry. I put it right here. The box is empty. She shook the box as if to prove it. Maybe you. I did. It was here when I went asleep. She was hyperventilating. She dropped to her knees, looking under the bed, sweeping her hands across the floor. Her hand closed around the sapphire ring. She pulled it out and stared at it, her face a mask of confusion and horror. This was in the box. How is it under the bed? Marcus got out of bed. He took the ring from her trembling hand. He looked at it, then at the empty box, then at his wife's terrified face. The color drained from his own. He did not say it was a coincidence. He did not suggest she was mistaken. He simply stood there, the ring a tiny, accusing blue eye in the center of his palm. The haunting was no longer about noises or smells. It was about theft and return. It was about a ghost that could not only move objects, but could choose what to take and what to leave behind as a signature. The line had been crossed, and Marcus, holding his grandmother's ring, was finally standing on the other side of it, looking back at his wife with dawning, terrible comprehension. The morning after the scream was a silent, frozen thing. The shock of the empty box and the single ring left as a token had paralyzed normal interaction. From my attic vent, I watched them move through the house like strangers, avoiding each other's eyes, speaking only in necessary monosyllables. Chloe's fear had hardened into a brittle, furious resolve. She packed a suitcase with sharp, angry motions. "I'm staying at the Marriott downtown tonight," she announced to the living room, where Marcus sat staring at the wall. "Why?" His voice was flat. "Because I can't sleep here, because this house is sick, or I am. Either way, I need a night in a normal, clean, modern room where nothing moves." She zipped the suitcase shut. "You should come with me." "I'm not leaving." "Fine, stay here with your guilt and your ghosts. The liquidators are still coming tomorrow. I've paid the deposit. They will be here at 9 a.m. to start on the upstairs bedrooms. I suggest you be gone, or you can help them carry out your childhood." She wheeled her suitcase past him and out the front door. The engine of her car started, and the sound faded down the street. The house sighed. The tension eased by a fraction, but a heavier, sadder weight settled in its place. Marcus did not move for a long time. Then he got up. I heard him moving through the rooms slowly. He went into the guest room, the room of sentimental clutter. He did not come out for over an hour. I spent the day in the attic, waiting, listening. He made himself a sandwich but did not eat it all. He called his office and said he wouldn't be in. The house was so quiet I could hear the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall, a sound I had lived with for 40 years but now heard with new clarity. Dusk fell. He did not turn on many lights. He sat in the living room until full dark, a silhouette in the chair. Then around 10 o'clock, I heard the back door open and close. I shifted to the vent that overlooked the back porch. He was there. He sat on the top step, his back to me, looking out into the small, dark yard. The night was warm, buzzing with cicadas. A single moth batted against the porch light. He sat perfectly still for several minutes. Then his shoulders slumped. He put his head in his hands. When he spoke, his voice was low, meant for no one but the night. But the house carried it up to me. "I don't know if you can hear me," he began, a long pause. "I don't know what you are, a ghost, a memory, my conscience." He swallowed audibly. "Mom." The word hung in the humid air. "I'm so sorry." His voice broke on the last syllable. He took a shuddering breath. "I am so sorry for everything, for the funeral, for letting Chloe talk like that, for nodding." He was crying now, silent tears I could sense in the hitch of his breath. "I was weak. I am weak. I let her steamroll me. I let her convince me that moving on meant erasing you, that your house was just a thing, that your life was clutter." He wiped his face with the heel of his hand. "I was grieving, but that's no excuse. I was also relieved. Is that awful? For a moment, when I thought you were gone, I felt relief, because the pressure was gone. The pressure to live up to you, to Dad, to this house and all its history. It felt like a door had opened to a simpler life. A life where I didn't have to feel like I was failing you every time I wanted something different." He looked up at the sky as if searching for stars through the city glow. "But it's not simpler. It's empty. And you're not gone, and now I've betrayed you twice. Once when I thought you were dead, and again now that you're alive. I see what she's doing, I've always seen it. I just didn't want to fight. Fighting is hard." He stood up suddenly, turning to face the house, his face pale in the yellow porch light. His eyes were red-rimmed, searching the dark windows. "Are you in there? Are you really in there, hiding? Or am I just losing my mind? Either way, I deserve it. I deserve to be haunted." He leaned against the porch rail, his energy spent. "She's bringing people tomorrow to take your things, to start tearing our family apart for cash. I told her I wouldn't stop it. But I will. I don't know how, but I will. I'll be here. I'll stand in the doorway. It's the least I can do. It's the first thing I should have done." He fell silent again. The cicadas' song swelled. After a few minutes, he went back inside. The door closed softly. I remained at the vent. The cold, sharp tool of my purpose was still there inside me, but something had shifted. A hairline fracture had appeared in its surface. His confession was not a performance. It was not for an audience. It was a raw, private unraveling. The relief he spoke of, I understood it. The weight of legacy, of expectation, was real. I had never meant it to be a burden, but I could see how it had become one for a son who wanted to please everyone and ended up pleasing no one, least of all himself. My anger toward Chloe was undiminished. It was a clean, focused fire. But my anger toward Marcus was now mixed with something else. It was pity, and a painful, reluctant love. The plan had been to expose Chloe, to humiliate her, to reclaim my home and let the consequences for Marcus be what they may. He was a casualty of his own making. But listening to him on the porch, hearing the genuine anguish, the recognition of his own failings, changed the equation. He was not evil. He was lost. And he was still my son. The boy who gave me the world's best son mug, however ironic it now seemed. Revenge, pure and simple, would destroy him along with her. It would leave me with a hollow victory in a house haunted by a different kind of ghost. I needed a new objective. Chloe still had to be stopped. Her greed still had to be exposed and neutralized. But Marcus needed to be given a chance, not to be let off the hook, but to find his way back. To choose, actively and with courage, the right side. My haunting had begun to crack his compliance. Now I needed to provide a path forward he could actually take. The liquidators were coming at 9 a.m. That was Chloe's move. I had until then to make mine. The plan was no longer just about scaring them or reclaiming trinkets. It was about creating a scenario where Marcus could stand up, where he could be the man on the porch, not just talking to the dark, but acting in the light. I looked down at my hands in the attic gloom. They were the hands that had polished the floors, turned the pages of books, held my son when he was small. They were not the hands of a ghost. They were the hands of a mother. And a mother's job, even in the midst of righteous anger, was to save her child when he was drowning. Even if he had pushed himself overboard. I left the attic before dawn. The house was still asleep, Marcus's confession hanging in the quiet rooms like dust. I took only my bag. I did not look back. I drove to B's through the empty streets, the first gray light bleeding into the sky. B was awake, dressed, with 2 travel mugs of coffee ready. She took one look at my face. "What happened?" "Marcus broke last night. He apologized. To the air, to me, to his conscience. He said he'll try to stop the liquidators today." I took a mug, the heat seeping into my hands. But trying isn't enough. He needs to succeed. And he needs to do it in a way that leaves Chloe no way back. We need the law on our side, not just a scene. B nodded, her expression turning shrewd. "Howard Perkins." "Exactly." Howard Perkins had been our family lawyer for 30 years. He had drawn up my will, handled my husband's estate, and watched Marcus grow up. He was also a deacon at the church and had been at the funeral. He was a man who valued truth and paperwork in equal measure. We called him from B's landline at 7. His wife answered, then passed him the phone. His voice was warm with concern. "Evelyn, Beatrice said you might call. I don't know what to say. The funeral and then the stories." "The stories are true, Howard. I am alive and I need your help, today, now if possible." He did not hesitate. "My office, 8:30. At 8:25, B and I sat in the familiar wood-paneled office. Legal books lined the walls. A framed photo of Howard with my husband and a younger Marcus sat on the credenza. Howard himself was in his late 70s with a neat white mustache and keen eyes behind bifocals. He listened without interruption as I told him everything. The hospital error, the funeral, the whisper, my hiding, the liquidators, Chloe's plans for a conservatorship, the hauntings, Marcus's porch confession. I did not embellish. I stated facts. When I finished, he removed his glasses and polished them slowly. Legally, you are in a strong position, Evelyn. The death certificate is a simple administrative revocation. You are the sole title holder of the house. Your will, which leaves everything to Marcus with a life estate for you, is irrelevant as you are alive. No one can sell your home, dispose of your property, or petition for conservatorship without your consent or a court order proving your incapacity. Which, he added, looking me over, would be a frivolous and losing argument. But she's trying, I said, and she's moving fast. The liquidators are scheduled for 9 a.m. today. My son may try to stop them physically. That won't end well. Howard leaned forward, lacing his fingers on his desk. Then we stop them legally, and we create a record. First, I will call the Clean Sweep Estates Company at 8:45. I will inform them that they are trespassing on private property and that any attempt to remove items will be considered theft. I will cite the pending revocation of the death certificate and your standing as the legal owner. I will record the call. Will that be enough? B asked. For the liquidators, yes, they are a business. They avoid liability. But for Chloe, he turned to me, you said she is holding an open house for flippers. She mentioned it to the realtor. She wants a quick sale to a developer. She'll do it as soon as possible, especially if the liquidators fall through. A slow smile touched Howard's lips. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a chess player seeing a checkmate. Then we let her. I looked at him. Let her. We let her schedule her open house. We let her bring the buyers into the home. And then we reveal you, not as a ghost, but as the very alive, very legal owner, in front of witnesses. It creates a public record of her attempted malfeasance. It humiliates her professionally and personally. It gives Marcus a clear, public line to choose, stand with his mother, the victim, or stand with his wife, the exposed opportunist. There will be no ambiguity. The cold tool inside me approved. It was clean. It was legal. It was devastating. What do we need to do? I asked. Paperwork, Howard said, opening a drawer. First, a notarized affidavit from you stating you are alive and competent, revoking any implied authority granted by the erroneous death certificate. I will file it with the county clerk this morning. Second, a cease and desist letter to Chloe, citing her actions as a trespass and warning of legal action for conversion of property. We will have it delivered to the house today. Third, a letter to the real estate agent, David, informing him that any attempt to list or show the property is unauthorized and will result in a complaint to the state licensing board. He began typing on his computer, his fingers surprisingly brisk. The key is timing. The affidavit establishes your legal standing. The cease and desist shows her we are serious. But the public reveal at the open house, that is the masterstroke. It turns her own weapon against her. How do we know when she'll schedule it? B asked. We listen, I said. I go back. I hear her plans. I let her think she's still in control, that the legal threats are just stumbling blocks. Her greed will make her reckless. She'll want to prove she can still pull it off. Howard printed the affidavit. He called in his notary, a serious young woman who glanced at me with wide eyes but asked no questions. I signed. The notary stamped and signed. The document was real. I'll file this within the hour, Howard said. I'll make the call to the liquidators now. The letters will be couriered by noon. He looked at me. You understand, Evelyn, this will burn bridges. With your daughter-in-law, certainly. Possibly with your son, depending on how he reacts in the moment. The bridges are already ashes, I said. I'm just cleaning up the debris. He nodded. Then go, listen. And when the time comes, give me 15 minutes notice. I'll be there as your legal counsel, a witness with standing. B and I drove back toward the neighborhood. We did not go to her house. We parked a block from mine. At 8:50, my phone buzzed with a text from Howard. Liquidators called. Contract canceled. citing legal liability, deposit forfeited. A moment later, I saw a white van with Clean Sweep Estates on the side drive past my house without stopping. It continued down the street and turned the corner. The first part of the trap was sprung. Now we waited for the prey to react. I sat in the passenger seat, watching my home. B sat beside me, a silent sentinel. The plan was set. The paperwork was in motion. All that was left was for Chloe to walk into the final scene, believing it was her own triumphant premiere. I felt no excitement, no anticipatory thrill, only a steady, patient certainty. The anger was still there, but it was now a component of the machine, not the fuel. The machine had a new purpose: to save my son from the wreckage he had helped create and to reclaim what was mine in the full, clear light of day. Chloe's reaction to the canceled liquidators was immediate and volcanic. From our parked car, B and I saw her sedan screech to a halt in the driveway. She stormed into the house. Minutes later, her voice, sharp enough to pierce the walls, reached us even at a distance. "What do you mean they canceled? You called them. How dare you interfere?" Marcus's lower voice was inaudible, but her response was not. "A lawyer? What lawyer? Perkins. That old man, he has no authority. This is our house now. I have a deposit paid." The argument raged for 20 minutes. Then the front door slammed. Chloe stood on the porch, phone to her ear, packing. Her gestures were broad, frustrated. She was making more calls. B's phone buzzed. It was a text from Loretta Green. "Just saw Chloe at the mailbox. She looks fit to be tied. She's putting up a sign, a handwritten sign." "A sign," I said. We drove around the block slowly. There, staked into the front lawn of my house, was a large piece of poster board. In bold, black marker it read, "Private open house, INVSDORS and DVLOPRS only. Today 3 p.m. Sirius INQRAS." "She's lost her mind," B murmured. "No realtor, no appointments, just a free-for-all." "She's desperate," I corrected. "The legal threats are closing in. She thinks if she can get a cash offer today, she can create facts on the ground, pressure Marcus, outrun Howard's paperwork." I felt a grim satisfaction. Her recklessness was perfect. We need to be inside before they arrive. We returned to B's. I changed into a simple, elegant dress I had kept there, a navy blue shift. I fixed my hair. I applied a little lipstick. I would not look like a ghost emerging from the attic. I would look like the lady of the house. At 2 o'clock, I used the key and re-entered my home through the back door. The house was empty. Marcus's car was gone. Perhaps Chloe had sent him away, or he had left to avoid the chaos. I moved to the small, enclosed sewing room off the main hallway. It had a door that locked from the inside and was lined with fabric and boxes. It was a room no flipper would care about. I locked myself in and waited. At 2:45, I heard Chloe return. She was not alone. The realtor, David, was with her, his voice a low, anxious murmur. "Chloe, this is highly irregular. The cease and desist letter from Perkins is just a scare tactic from a grieving, confused old woman and her doddering lawyer. We have momentum. We have interest. I got 3 calls from the sign already. Once they see the potential, we can get a verbal commitment. We'll deal with the legal noise later. Your husband is handling it. Now help me set up these information sheets." I heard the rustle of paper. The doorbell rang. Then again. Voices began to filter into the house. Male voices, mostly, curt, businesslike. I heard greetings, the sound of shoes on the hardwood. By 3:15, there were at least a dozen people milling through the downstairs rooms. I could hear snippets through the door. "Load-bearing wall here, easy enough to take down. Square footage is good. Lot size is the real play. Flip it in 6 months, triple the investment." Chloe's voice, bright and artificial, acted as tour guide. "As you can see, the space is ripe for modernization. The current owner is transitioning, so we're motivated for a quick as-is sale." I took a small, remote-controlled device from my pocket, a universal remote I had programmed to my living room's ceiling fan and lights. I pressed a button. In the living room, the ceiling fan light flickered off, then on, then off again. A man's voice, Wiring's probably shot. Add it to the list. I pressed another sequence. The hall light, visible under my door, dimmed dramatically. Old dimmer switch, Chloe said quickly, her voice losing some of its shine. I then used a different device, a small Bluetooth speaker I had hidden days before on a high bookshelf in the dining room. I tapped my phone. The soft, distinct opening notes of What a Wonderful World, my husband's favorite song, began to play. The chatter in the house died down. Is that music? Someone asked. It must be a neighbor, Chloe said, but her voice was tight. It's in here, another man stated. I turned it off. An uneasy silence settled over the group. I could feel their collective hesitation. This was no longer a simple property tour. Maybe we should, David the realtor began. It's an old house, Chloe interrupted, a forced laugh in her voice. Quirks are part of the charm. Now the kitchen, as I said, is a total gut job. I had one more effect. During my attic stays, I had loosened the latch on the porch door. Now, from my phone, I triggered a smart plug connected to a small, powerful fan I'd positioned in the hallway closet. It came on with a whir, and the sudden draft blew the porch door wide open with a loud bang. Several people gasped. I heard a quick shuffle of feet. Okay, what is going on here? A deep voice demanded. This feels like a bad joke. It's the wind, Chloe insisted, but panic was creeping in. David, shut that door. This was the moment. The tension was at its peak. Their greed was battling superstitious unease. They were primed for a reveal. I unlocked the sewing room door. I stepped out into the hallway. A few of the investors were clustered near the living room archway, looking wary. Chloe and David were near the kitchen, facing them. All backs were to me. I did not shout. I did not make a grand gesture. I simply walked to the bottom of the staircase and stood there, my hand resting on the polished wood of the newel post, a post worn smooth by 4 decades of hands. I believe there has been a misunderstanding about this home's availability, I said. My voice was calm, clear, and carried. Every head turned. 12 strangers, David and Chloe. Chloe's face underwent a horrific transformation. The color drained, leaving a sickly white. Her eyes bulged. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She took an involuntary step back, bumping into the wall. David stared, his professional composure shattered. Mrs. Washington. The investors looked confused, glancing from me to Chloe. My name is Evelyn Washington. I am the owner of this house. It is not for sale. It has never been for sale. This event, I said, gesturing to the crowd, was organized without my knowledge or consent by my daughter-in-law, who appears to have acted under the mistaken impression that I was deceased. I looked directly at Chloe. The legal documents revoking that impression were filed this morning. The cease and desist letters you received are valid. You are currently trespassing in my home and encouraging others to do the same. A low murmur ran through the investors. They began to look at Chloe not as a seller, but as a fraud. She's not well, Chloe finally choked out, pointing a trembling finger at me. She's confused. She's been missing. I have been home, I said, for days, listening, planning, waiting for you to show your true intentions to a room full of witnesses. I addressed the crowd. I apologize for your wasted time. The open house is concluded. I suggest you leave. They needed no further encouragement. They moved toward the door quickly, muttering among themselves. Lawsuit waiting to happen, totally fraudulent, waste of an afternoon. David scurried out after them, not making eye contact with anyone. In moments, the house was empty of strangers. It was just Chloe and me in the living room. The silence was thick and heavy. She stared at me, her breath coming in short gasps. The terror was giving way to a furious, cornered rage. You vindictive old witch, you set me up. You set the trap, I replied. I merely allowed you to walk into it. You wanted to sell my life. Now everyone knows what you are. The front door opened. Marcus stood there, frozen on the threshold, taking in the scene, his mother alive and poised, his wife pale and shaking with fury, the last of the investors' cars pulling away from the curb. He understood instantly. The final piece of the plan was in place. The choice was now his, and it was public, undeniable, and had to be made in the ruins of his wife's ambition. Marcus stood in the doorway, his eyes moving from Chloe's twisted expression to my calm one. The empty house seemed to hold its breath. The last car door slammed outside, signaling the end of the spectacle. Chloe found her voice first, directing her fury at him. "Well, are you just going to stand there, say something, do something?" Marcus closed the door slowly. He did not look at her. His gaze was fixed on me, filled with a complex storm of shame, relief, and exhaustion. "You were here the whole time," he said. It wasn't a question. I was. Listening. Yes. He nodded, absorbing the truth of it. The surveillance, the hauntings, the engineered confrontation, it all settled onto his shoulders. He turned finally to Chloe. "You need to leave." Her mouth fell open. "What?" "You need to leave this house. Now, take your things from the hotel, go wherever you want, but you don't come back here." "You're choosing her, after what she just did to us, to our future." "There is no us if us means stealing from my mother and lying to a room full of people," Marcus said. His voice was low, but it had a new, solid core. It was the voice from the porch, but now it was directed at a person, not the dark. "You planned to sell her home while you thought she was dead. You tried to have her declared incompetent when you found out she was alive. You called me weak, and you were right. But I'm not too weak to see this anymore. Get out." The finality in his tone broke her last thread of control. She snatched her purse from the hall table. "You'll regret this. You'll be back in that mediocre apartment, tied to this crumbling museum and a bitter old woman. You'll be nothing." "Then that's what I'll be," he said, stepping aside to clear her path to the door. She shot me a final, venomous look, but there was no fight left in it. It was the empty glare of a gambler who has lost everything on a single bet. She yanked the door open and left. The sound of her car engine faded quickly. Silence returned, deeper and more profound than before. Marcus leaned against the wall, his head bowed. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I heard you the first time," I said, "on the porch." He looked up, eyes wet. "It doesn't feel like enough." "It isn't," I said plainly. "Apologies are words, they are a start. But this house and my trust were built by actions. They will have to be rebuilt the same way." "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to go to the hotel, get the rest of your things. Then you will come back here. You will live in the guest room, not as my caretaker and not as the heir. As a tenant, you will pay a modest rent which I will put into an account for the upkeep of this house. You will attend counseling alone to figure out why you were so willing to erase yourself to please someone else. We will have dinner together twice a week. We will talk. Not about the past, not at first. About books, the news, the weather. We will relearn how to be in the same room without a ghost between us." He listened, his expression wary but accepting. "And if I do all that? Then, in time, we may become family again. Not the family we were. A new one, forged in the wreckage of the old." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "That's more than I deserve." "It's not about what you deserve. It's about what I am willing to build." I turned and walked toward the kitchen. "Go get your things. I'm going to make tea." He left. I filled the kettle with water and placed it on the stove, the familiar click of the burner a comfort. I moved through my kitchen, putting things back in their proper places. I retrieved my jewelry from the light bulb box in the hall closet. I returned the photographs to their frames, the cracked glass a reminder, but the faces intact. An hour later, Bea arrived, letting herself in the back door as she always had. She carried a bag of fresh pastries. She looked at me at the calm order of the kitchen and smiled. "It's done." "It's begun," I said. We took the tea tray out to the back porch. The afternoon sun was warm, filtering through the oak tree in the yard. We sat in the worn wicker chairs. The cicadas were singing. It was the same porch where Marcus had confessed, but the air was different now. Lighter. We drank our tea in a comfortable silence. The house behind us was quiet, but it was no longer the silence of absence or tension. It was the silence of a space returning to itself. Later, we heard the front door open and close. Footsteps moved through the house, then upstairs. the sound of a suitcase being unpacked. Then, after a while, the sound of a toolbox opening. A few minutes later, the distinct, rhythmic squeak of the third step from the top of the stairs stopped mid-squeak. A moment of silence, then the firm, solid sound of a footstep on a now-silent board. Bea raised her teacup to me. I clinked mine against it. We sat until the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in stripes of orange and purple. The neighborhood sounds were the same as always, a dog barking, a child calling, a car driving past slowly. Marcus came out eventually. He stood in the doorway, hesitating. "I fixed the step," he said. "I heard," I replied. "There's a leak under the kitchen sink. The washer's probably worn. I can replace it tomorrow." "All right." He nodded, then retreated back inside. Bea left as evening fell. I washed the teacups. I turned off the lights downstairs. I climbed the stairs, my hand on the banister. The repaired step was solid under my foot. In my own bedroom, in my own bed, I slept through the night for the first time since the funeral. There were no ghosts in the house. Only a mother, a son, and the slow, patient work of rebuilding a home, piece by piece, action by action, on a foundation that had, against all odds, held.